Hi guys, welcome to the adventure. I'm Caitlin and this is my channel, Curly Red Tales. Okay, so this is just a brief interruption before you watch the rest of the video, but I'm aware it is now April and this video is obviously what I read in February, and I actually filmed it in the middle of March, so none of the months are adding up here, but that's okay. However, I still wanted to post it because I worked damn hard on this video and I keep putting off posting like a first video on my channel. So you guys are just gonna have to watch what I read in February 2 months late. Also, I only read one book last month, so it doesn't really make sense to post a March monthly wrap-up. Also, I just realised that I'm actually wearing the exact same top that I wear in this video. That was not on purpose. So yeah, I will now let you continue the video. It was just a brief interruption to let you guys know that I'm aware this video is 2 months late and I don't care. So enjoy what I read in February. So since it's basically the middle of March now, I would say it's getting to the middle of March, I thought I would do a wrap-up video of everything that I read in February. I feel like I read quite a lot in February compared to most months. I've recently seen tons of TikTok videos of people saying what I read last month, and it would be like 20 books. And I'm like, excuse you? How did you have the time to read all of those books? Because I certainly don't. And then I found The Secret. The Secret that everybody had been talking about for years, and I just did not want to jump on the bandwagon because I didn't get it. I did not click with audiobooks. I would love to be a narrator for audiobooks, and I would love to, voice over audiobooks. Yeah, I just found it hard to jump on the audiobook bandwagon because whenever I would listen to audiobooks, I would just zone out. I would find myself zoning out really, really quickly and finding it hard to get into the story if it's not like physically in front of me and I can physically hold the book in my hands. I would find it really difficult to understand the characters, understand the plot, just where they were, what it was even about, just anything. But I gave it a fair good try January and February, and I've actually quite enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it mainly because I feel like I get to read a lot more books by listening to it, and I can listen to it while I'm doing my morning job and while I'm cleaning around the house or, going for a shower, just sticking an audiobook on. It has genuinely been so helpful, and I do not know why I was so hesitant about it for so long. I actually only read 2 physical books in February because I was mainly listening to audiobooks because I just really enjoyed them. But nevertheless, this is what I read. I literally had to stop the camera and run to go grab the books because I realised I didn't actually have the physical books next to me. So the first book I read in February was The Demon World by Sally Green. Now this is the second book in the Smoke Thieves series, which I've got the first book of here. Now I'm sorry, but how gorgeous are these books? Like the white cover with the purple pages, the purple cover with the white pages, I'm sorry, that was genius. I really like Sally Green's writing. I'm in the middle of her other series right now called Half Bad, which I'm very excited to finish. I finally got the last book of. I'm really thoroughly enjoying this series. I finished this book and I was like, oh, I need the last one. I need the last book, which I still haven't got yet, but it is on my to-do list to get this last book. Basically, this series got multiple character point of views: a princess, a soldier, a hunter, a traitor, and a thief. So when I first read that, I thought Breakfast Club vibes, obviously. But it's really interesting. It feels very D&D to me. I do not know how to describe books. I read books and I've just realised I don't know how to describe them to people. Give me a couple secs while I think of it. Okay, I feel like I need to describe the first book in order to describe the second book, the one I actually read, because I read this one in November. Genuinely, I feel like this is the perfect fantasy book. If you like D&D and you love fantasy, this is a really great YA book to get involved in. It just kind of gives you a bit of everything. I feel like what more could you ask for in a book that has a forbidden love, an arranged marriage, fantasy, tavern nights, action, demons, wars. Genuinely, you couldn't get more from this book. So if you like any of that, then you will love this series, because I definitely do. So that's what the first book's about. But the second one, which is the one I actually read in February, is basically the main group of people fleeing from Princess Catherine's father's war that he's just started. And they actually enter the demon world, which is really, really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I'm not always a big fan of sequels of books. Sometimes I feel like it's really hard for me to get into them a majority of the time. But this one I definitely love. So I would highly recommend the Smoke Thieves series by Sally Green. I cannot wait to get the last one, which is called A Burning Kingdom. And I'm very excited about that. The second book, I feel like I'm ashamed to admit to reading this book, because I was so against reading it, and then it just kept coming up on TikTok again and again, and I was like, fine, do you know what? I will read this book, but I will not be happy about it, and I will not enjoy it. And that book is A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Now, I will say that when I started reading this book, I did not enjoy it. I was reading it and I was like, oh, I'm just not... It took me 10 chapters to get into this book. And I really didn't want to like it. The more I kept reading, the more I was like, do you know what? I might DNF it. I don't DNF books. That is one of my biggest rules, is that I will never DNF a book. I will always try and finish it. But this book, I was like, I feel like this is going to take me a long time to read. And it didn't. It just didn't. I struggled with the first 10 chapters, but then I got so into the story, and now I'm just like, I see the hype. I see what people were talking about, and I do want to get the second book. I do want to get it. I don't know if there's many people that don't know what this series is about. I know it's been out for a while, a good few years at least, and I know it just kind of became popular on TikTok randomly. However, I think a big reason why I wasn't into reading this was because it was getting described as a Beauty and the Beast kind of retelling. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't get that feeling from this book. Like, yes, the main character is captured by a creature and she's like held hostage, but then she's not held hostage because she's free to live how she wants. Just that she's not free to go back to her family and her own world, which is quite contradictory really when you think about it. So I guess in those kind of senses I can understand it being like said like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but that's not the vibe I got from it. And I'm glad that I ended up reading it to understand that, because I love Beauty and the Beast, don't get me wrong. I think it's one of my favourite Disney films. But I have read a couple of Beauty and the Beast retellings already, and I'm kind of bored with reading the retellings of them. So yeah, but actually, I really enjoyed this. If you don't know what this is about, which I find this hard to believe, but the main girl, Feyre, is a hunter and she hunts to provide for her family. They used to be wealthy, but her dad lost a lot of money, so now they like live off of scraps and stuff. So she learned how to hunt in order to provide for her family, and she goes and she kills this massive wolf, which turns out to be a bad thing because this wolf was a friend to the Fey Kingdom. There's basically this huge rival between humans and Fays or fairies. They set up this big wall border where humans can't cross into their world, and fairies shouldn't really cross into theirs, but they still do anyway. Humans are basically terrified of them and their powers and their gifts. But the Fae hunts down Feyre. The Fae hunts down Feyre, because he finds out that she killed his friend. As punishment, her and her family get to live, but she has to live the rest of her life in his kingdom. And so she goes to his kingdom, she learns to live there, but then she learns that there's this massive darkness and sickness going throughout the land, and that they're trying their best to protect it. And so she realises that the Fays aren't all as bad as the humans think they are. And obviously, enemies to lovers. Who does not love that trope in a fantasy genre? There was quite a few twists that I didn't see coming towards the end of it, I feel. But then I also did predict them. Like, obviously, you predicted that she was going to fall in love with him. I mean, obviously, he's her captor, but he's letting her live freely in his realm, and he's teaching her about all these wondrous things. So then she's like, oh, he's not that bad. So obviously, she's going to fall in love. That was predictable. I do like how they did the ending of this book. Didn't want to enjoy it. Really, really enjoyed it. So now I have to get the rest of the bloody series, which I'm okay about, to be honest. I jumped on the bandwagon, didn't want to, didn't mean to, and now I've fallen in the trap of needing to read the rest. I was hoping to film like a first reads video of me reading this book, because when I started it, as I said, I didn't really enjoy it. It was just a bit slow. I wasn't really that involved with the characters at that time. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll just film myself reading it because it would be like really controversial that I didn't like this book. Then I did. So maybe I'll film myself reading the rest of the series, because the reason why I wanted to read this book was because I was seeing one too many TikToks of the latest book that was released. I genuinely don't know the name. That's really bad of me as a booktuber or a book reader, that I don't know the name of this last book. But I saw people reading the latest release of the Akatar series, and the way that they were describing it, it just made me feel like I need to read this book, that it would just get me in my feels. Because honestly, I've been struggling with reading lately in the past couple of years. I thought when COVID started and, you know, we were all locked in our homes and stuff, that I would just be reading non-stop. And I would get through all of my TBR. And what ended up happening was I went on a 2-year reading slump. A 2-year reading slump. That is the biggest reading slump I've ever had in my entire life. Of course, I did read books here and there, but everything I picked up to read just, it didn't grasp me. And I've been really struggling finding books that I've like connected to the way that I did when I read, you know, The Hunger Games for the first time, or Divergent, or any of those series. Like, those books grasped you and you were like, it was like throat chokingly good. Is that like a term? It was like to the point where you were just like, ugh. Yeah. Basically, I found it hard to find books that made me feel that way. And the way that people were talking about the Akatar series kind of stirred up those feelings a little bit. So I thought, okay, I've got to try it. And yes, I'm very excited for the second book. Those were the physical books I read in February. God, it took me so long to talk about those books. Please bear with me. I obviously don't have anybody to speak about books with in everyday life. So I haven't found a good routine on how to describe books, if you can tell. Now I will go on to the audiobooks. Now, I actually started the Mallory Towers series by Enid Blyton. I am a huge Enid Blyton fan. I used to love her books growing up as a child. My favourite is The Faraway Tree. However, I had never read the Mallory Towers series, and I have no idea why, because it's set in the late 1940s, the war's just finished, and it's about a group of girls in boarding school during that time. So I don't know why I never clicked onto this series, but I saw the TV show that was just released on BBC. I really enjoyed it, so I thought, oh, do you know what, I'll just start reading the books. But instead I got the audiobooks because a majority of them are free on YouTube. So if you want to listen to them and you don't have Audible, then that's fine, just go on YouTube. However, they are missing a couple, but I just hooked onto my mum's Audible and I got her into listening to them again, so she bought them for me. But yes, so I listened to the first few books of the Mallory Towers series by Enid Blyton in January. However, the ones that I listened to in February, because this is obviously a February wrap-up, not a January one, was The Upper Fourth, In the Fifth, and Last Term at Mallory Towers. Those ones are all done by Enid Blyton. Now, there is another series that has been carried on about the storyline, but obviously it's not been written by Enid Blyton. I will double check who actually wrote that series, because I think it was my mum that told me about this. I really love these books. They just make me feel so nostalgic. Even though I didn't read these ones as a child, I've obviously read other Enid Blyton ones, but her writing is nostalgic. Not just to my childhood, but just to that kind of time in that era. And the way she writes, I find, is so, for lack of a better term, it is slightly old-fashioned, and I love that style of writing. If you don't know what Mallory Towers is about, it's basically a group of girls that go to boarding school, and it's about their adventures at boarding school. They play tricks on their teachers, the friendships, the frenemies that they make, their life in an English boarding school. It kind of follows all of the girls, like all of the characters in this one dormitory. However, it kind of focuses more specifically on a character called Darryl Rivers. It's just a really sweet, beautiful, nostalgic, easy set of books to listen to or read, and I'm hoping to get the box set of them soon because I am a physical copy girl, which is why I find it so interesting that I've gone into the audiobooks. And I will say The only audiobooks I've actually liked has been the Mallory Towers audiobooks, which is very odd. Actually, another series of Mallory Towers books follows the character Daryl Rivers, her sister, Felicity Rivers' time at Mallory Towers after Daryl has gone off to university. They're kind of the same vibe in the sense that it's at Mallory Towers and you get to see what her sister's life in Mallory Towers is like. However, I have noticed that listening to the second set of Mallory Towers books is very, very similar to the first. It feels like a carbon copy of all the characters that were in the original set of Mallory Towers when it comes to personality and traits. So in that sense, it did feel a little bit repetitive listening to them. However, I still enjoyed them. It was still, you know, books linked to the Mallory Towers world and that boarding school life. Also because obviously I like the 40s, I really enjoyed them. So the other set of books that I listened to was the new term and the summer term at Mallory Towers. I would have listened to the rest of them, however, the winter term isn't on YouTube. And my mum so far hasn't got it on Audible. So, in wrap up, the books that I read from the Mallory Towers series was The Upper Fourth in the Fifth, Last Term, New Term, which is Felicity's Journey, and Summer Term. The last few books I think in the Mallory Towers series are Winter Term, Fun and Games, and another one. I think there's like another two. I'm not sure. I know the last one's called Goodbye Mallory Towers. I probably will finish the series, even though it does feel a little bit repetitive, the second set of Mallory Towers books. I probably will finish them because they're really easy to listen to while I'm like going about cleaning, and they're actually really funny, even though it is probably set for like 9 to 10-year-olds, I'd say. I guess in England that's like middle grade books. They're honestly like super funny. The tricks that the girls get up to, just the type of tricks that the girls play on their teachers, nobody does in this day and age. I feel like in this day and age, any tricks that children would play on teachers are not funny as such, or teachers won't find joy of them. They're just kind of like naff. But the tricks that they play on them, like they draw chalk on the teacher's chair that's invisible, and then when the teacher sits down for a period of time, obviously the chair heats up from like body temperature, and then when she stands up she's got like these chalk drawings on her bum, and I just think that's hilarious. And they do tons of little jokes like that. There was one trick where one of the girls, Alicia, her brothers love doing tricks and stuff, and they sent her a pack of sneezing pellets. Obviously, like I said, because this was done in the 1940s, there was like companies that would make these joke things like they do nowadays, but less boring or plastic or noticeably jokeable. But there were these sneezing pellets where Alicia planted it in the girls' classroom, and she put a little bit of water on it, and it would like dissolve over a period of time, so that at some point during the period when the teacher starts to breathe it in, she'll like continuously start sneezing. And it's just interesting listening to how jokes were played out compared to what they are now, because now it's just like, you know, spitballs through a straw or throwing paper across a room, and I'm just like, those were the jokes in those days. I highly suggest, if you've not read them, to either listen to them on YouTube or whatever, because I found myself laughing out loud quite a few times while I was listening to them, and they're just good fun and easy. So on to the last book I read / listened to. I actually listened to the Queen's Poisoner by Jeff Wheeler, and that's the first book in the King Fountain series. I don't know, I've never heard of this series before, but my mum had been begging me to read this series for years, like yonks. Honestly, I did find it hard to get into listening to it, to be honest, because I have tried it in the past and I just didn't quite understand the geography or who the characters were when I first listened to it. However, listening to it this time, I persevered and it was really good. I did really enjoy it. There's a lot in this book that I really don't think I would be able to describe very well to you guys. So all I will say is that I would say it's like high fantasy, like adult fantasy. It's about this young boy who is fountain blessed, which means that he has certain gifts, but you don't find that out till really, really late on. And he lives as a king's hostage. And while he's living in the castle as the king's hostage, he meets the Queen's Poisoner. It is basically a servant of the previous queen who is a spy and an assassin, and she basically helps young Owen to escape the castle. It's very good. There is a lot of cliffhangers at the end of chapters. It's very suspenseful. It's a very suspenseful high fantasy book with a lot of twists in it, most of which I didn't see coming and didn't quite understand, but it was very gripping. The only thing I will say about it is that when it ended, it felt like an ending. It felt like, you know, okay, this is where Owen's life is at now. It's a happy ending. It just feels like that's where they should have left it. However, in reading the next few books, because obviously it's a series, I read the blurbs of the next few books, and it's basically about Owen in the next few stages of his life going throughout it, and his troubles with the king as life goes on, and with his powers, and he falls in love, and all this kind of stuff. So I've not actually been too interested in reading or listening to the second book, because I just felt like the first book rounded everything off quite nicely to the point where you didn't feel like you needed to know more. I really enjoyed The Queen's Poisoner in the end. It's not one of my favourites that I've read, but I enjoyed it. I don't know if I will continue with the series, which is very unlike me. Usually if I start a book, I need to figure out what the rest of the series is. However, because it didn't really end on a cliffhanger, I don't feel particularly drawn to see what happens next. I feel like the next few books have just been created as like this is what else that happened in his lifetime feeling. So yeah, that is everything that I read in February. In total, it was about 8 books, which I think is very good for me. I know there's lots of people that read a lot more than that, but I was very proud of myself for how much I read in February. Not every month is going to be the same, and I might read more, but I'd probably read less. So in terms of these monthly wrap-up videos for me, you'll probably find like the amount of books I read was like 5. But that is realistic, and I'm all about that. I really hope you enjoyed listening to me waffle on about the books I read last month. If you couldn't tell, I don't really speak to people very much about what I've been reading, and so I'm not very good at describing books. I'm hoping to get better, so I'm sorry if this was quite babbly. But I hope you managed to, you know, wash the dishes or hoover or something while you were listening to this video. I know that's what I would do. I have no idea what video I'm going to film next, so I hope you join me in my next video and next adventure. Bye guys! There goes the sun again. There goes the sun. There goes the sun. I'll say it's alright, but okay, the sun is literally gonna come and go, so please just bear with me. Bear with me, as if I can do something about the sun.